What's cracking, ladies and gentlemen? FortyeniN coming at you with another community shoutcast for the UGC Dota League Season 2. We're loading into game number 3 of the best of 3 series for the quarterfinals. So we have mate up against Tuzki or Husky. This is the end of the line. Whichever team loses this next game will be eliminated in the single elimination quarterfinal series of the UGC League. So the team that wins will advance to the semifinals happening next week. And then should they continue to win, we'll be moving on to the grand finals and the conclusion of Season 2, so mate, currently ranked 4th in the rankings, and Tuzki or Husky ranked 5th. Both teams fairly evenly matched, I believe, in the series they played at the start of the season. Mate went 1-1 with them, this could have been the rare season where they 2-0'd them, but most likely, mate, they have a tendency for throwing games, especially the second game. In case you haven't noticed, is game number 2, complete stomp going to the hands of Tuzki or Husky, just due to the fact that, mate, very questionable draft, especially deciding to go with the tight end in the 4 position role. Mule as the silencer in the mid lane, despite having a fairly favourable matchup against the Void because of a lot of early rotations coming in for Pork, with La playing that Skywrath Mage rotating to the mid lane, and Pork being able to find a lot of traction as the faces Void, despite the fact that Void mid usually is fairly ineffective just due to the fact that he needs so much farm and so many kills to really start to pick up. They were able to make it work, and mate, this time they pick up Centaur Warrunner first. So the hero that they've banned out every single other game, and we've got the respect Watermelon ban coming here from Tuzki or Husky, is this time Terrorblades in the pool. And this could be something Tuzki or Husky might look to pick up himself, as I believe one of their players, most likely Tumbling or currently going by Stand-in Isucklol, I believe he's the one that plays Terrorblade for their team, so they do have that option. But Terrorblade you usually want to pick up not in the first picking stage, but in the second picking stage, as picking you up too early means the enemy team can counter you with a hero like an Axe or a Zeus, a hero that can effectively force Terrorblade to not engage in any fights early on, force him to play incredibly passively, so you stomp the rest of his team 4v5, and then build enough traction, enough momentum to be able to close out the game, or take enough towers that you put your team in a good enough position to take the game to late. And Tuzki or Husky going in for the Death Prophet didn't really work out for them too well in game number 1, as Pork, despite having a fantastic laning phase, just constantly got caught in a position by the repelled, blinking, dueling Legion Commander, so there's only so much you could account for. It's a little bit unfortunate that Tuzki or Husky this time. They might have a bit of a better chance against the lineup coming in from mate. Although that being said, Omni Knight's being picked up. And when it comes down to the line, mate, they could look to go for the Phantom Assassin mid. Mule, haven't really been too impressed by his performance in the mid lane, usually a fantastic 1v1 solo laner. This time, in this series at least, having a bit of a difficult time, and game number 1 was at least able to recover with a lot of rotations coming in from his end. Game number 2 completely stomped and was never able to find enough farm or enough levels to be effective, and his global silencers didn't have the timing to really pull them off against the lineup coming in from Tuzki or Husky. Only interrupted one Chronosphere before it was casted, and the rest of the time threw them a little bit too late, didn't provide enough of a combo breaker for his team to stop the lineup of Tuzki or Husky from being able to execute. Mate, banning out the Tempestor as well as the Ogre Magi. Tempestor, very powerful, a hero to go against the Centaur Warrior, and Centaur as a melee hero and as a strength hero, always going to be eating that Whirling Death, and because Centaur has such a high HP pool, Whirling Death does a massive amount of damage to him. So very relevant respect ban coming out from mate to ensure that Centaur Warrior, if he is in the 1v1 offlane, has a good start. And Centaur Warrior, while a very powerful offlane hero, should he find his farm and levels, he is very contingent on not getting caught in a position, not getting ganked. And Centaur, if he's behind, becomes completely useless. He needs to find Blink Dagger in the first 14 minutes, so he can set up ganks for the rest of his team. Or failing that, he needs to be able to find some recovery kills once he gets Stampede. The biggest strength of Centaur, of course, is if he's able to find that 14-minute Blink Dagger, he's able to provide such a massive amount of momentum for your team, because every single time you have Stampede, you have a reliable form of initiation and a reliable form of to disengage fights, so you could run away every single time Death Prophet pops the Exorcism, every single time you see the Mystic Flare coming in from Tuzki or Husky, wait for it to wear off, then you can choose to re-engage, or just wait out the ultimates from the Death Prophet as well as the Skywrath Mage, because that's their biggest teamfight contribution. If you're able to outlast the Exorcism, or rather dodge it, and fight her without the Exorcism, she becomes Death Prophet, completely different hero. She loses such a huge amount of her impact that she can't really fight without it, unless she, of course, she's incredibly far ahead in the early stages of the game. Razor ban coming up from mate, as Tumbling on Tuzki or Husky played an absolutely fantastic Arteezy style. Razor, as he went for the Treads, Drums of Endurance, BKB build very early on, found himself almost a solo ultra kill at about 100 HP, just smacking people down with that static link damage. And Tuzki or Husky, banning out the silencers, as well as the Legion Commander, so respect ban to Mule, So respecting the power of the blinking, repelling, dueling Legion Commander, which you really can't do anything against. This time instead deciding to pick up a much more useful support here with the Skywrath Mage, but of course Skywrath can't do anything against the Omni Knight, or against the target's repel, but that being said, Omni Knight as well with the repel, or should he get silenced with the Skywrath Mage, can't do anything. So both these supports, they cancel each other out, but of course Omni Knight doesn't really provide you any presence in the laning stage, while Skywrath Mage is very powerful at zoning out the offlaner, as he provides a lot of damage. And Tuzki or Husky, looks like they decided to pick up the Terrorblade in the second banning stage, well, second picking stage, pardon me, after banning out the heroes that counteract the Terrorblade, such as Legion Commander, who could duel them down, or the Silencer to prevent it from using the Sunder. Yeah, nah, mate, most likely going to be looking to pick up a hero such as a Zeus. Zeus counters Terrorblade in two ways. A, you've got a massive amount of burst damage, so should Terrorblade ever show himself in a fight, you instantly kill him, because you've got the Lightning Bolt, Thunder God's Wrath. Those two abilities at level 6 or level 7 should be enough to instantly kill Terrorblade very early on, or drop him low enough that he's going to be forced to disengage, because he's going to be sitting at about 10% HP. He also counters your team in the fact that he does so much damage to the rest of your team that Terrorblade's really dependent on the supporting cast. If you can instantly kill the rest of his team or drop him low enough, you don't even have the option of sundering your own teammates. It really makes the Terrorblade less effective as a pick, since it means that when you pick up a Terrorblade, especially against a Zeus, you're forced to play 4v5. Terrorblade can't show his face in a fight without getting killed. It means that the rest of your team is going to get stomped by Zeus, who throws lightning bolts at your face. Yeah, nah, mate, opt to go for the support pick of the Lion, and Lion's the reason why you've seen Terrorblade fall out of the meta, at least as far as the competitive scene is concerned. Since Lion, very effective counter to the Terrorblade, you've got the Mana Drain to instantly kill his illusion, you've also got Hex, so if you happen to Hex the right Terrorblade, you finger him, you laugh at his face. If you catch the wrong one, you instantly kill the illusion, so you've got a very effective way to deal with them. You also have the You've got the Batrider pickup now coming in from Tuzki or Husky. Batrider, very powerful off-lane hero to deal with, especially against the Centaur Warrunner, because you've got the sticky napalm stacks to be able to snare him in place, and you burn him down with the Firefly. So in the 1v1 matchup, Batrider of course has the edge. You also have the fact that if Batrider gets enough farm, that if he's able to find a 14-minute Blink Dagger, much in the same vein as the Centaur Warrunner, you've got every single initiation going to your hands for the rest of the game. Batrider is the single best initiator in the game, due to the fact that when he Fireflies, A, you get flying vision, so you can see through obstructions such as trees, such as cliffs. You also have the fact that when you initiate, since you're going to be the one that has vision of them, you can initiate and then instantly disengage by dragging them back with the Force Staff. So you've got the Skyhook combination, Blink, Lasso, Force Staff yourself away. I'm just going to quickly log out of Steam just so I don't get any more messages. Bear with me real quick. Slark pickup now coming in from Nah, mate. Slark very powerful against the Batrider, because if he happens to be 1v1 against the Batrider, he's got the Dark Pack, so he doesn't have to worry about sticky napalm. Makes him very powerful for dealing with the Batrider as a threat. Also means that if Batrider decides to play aggressively against the Slark, Slark can actually turn around the gank. He pops the Dark Pack, pounces on Batrider, which Batrider won't be expecting, especially if Batrider's in tower range, and because Slark's instantly purging off all the sticky napalm stacks, if Batrider happens to overcommit and find himself in tower range, Slark finds himself an easy kill. Omni Knight and Slark, we saw that combination work to perfection in game number 1, as Repel actually doesn't get purged off by Dark Pack, so it means that Slark can go God mode for 12 seconds with the Repel, and then afterwards he's got that 5.5 coming in from the Shadow Dance. Tuzki or Husky, most likely going to be anticipating the Shadow Blade build, although in this case, Blink Dagger will be much more effective on the Slark, because you really need to shut down the Terrorblade, shut him down hard. You can't afford to waste that extra time farming for the Shadow Blade, when you need that Blink Dagger to instantly pick off. Heroes like the Skywrath Mage, who's absolute food to the Slark. Once Slark gets that pounce off, there's nothing Skywrath Mage can do to Slark, since against the Skywrath Mage, you pop Dark Pack before you Blink Pounce, just in case the Skywrath Mage is quick enough to react with the Ancient Seal, because that way if he does, you instantly purge it off, you pounce him in the face, Skywrath Mage can't do anything, he eats 540 magic damage from the Dark Pack, as well as the pounce, and then you stab him a few times for good measure to ensure he's dead. Terrorblade as well, gonna live in absolute terror. The Slark can constantly hunt his jungle, and if the Slark is man-fighting against Terrorblade, and Terrorblade starts to get low, Slark pops Shadow Dance, Terrorblade says, oh no, who do I sunder now? Turns around to try to find his teammate, but Slark should be able to finish him off by then. Templar Assassin Band, once again coming in from Tuzki or Husky. As Templar, fantastic hero to deal with the Death Prophet. In the 1v1 matchup, Templar Assassin crushes the Death Prophet mid, or at least she should, just due to the fact that at level 1 with the Refraction, Templar Assassin's got about 80 base damage compared to Death Prophet, who has 60 or 59 if she starts with an L Talisman. Templar Assassin's got more damage to work with, has an easier, much more fluid animation. I believe she hasn't got a front swing of 0.3 compared to Death Prophet with 0.6 or 0.7. And so you're going to get more last hits and more importantly, more denies. Once you pick up level 2, you just prioritize denies for the rest of the laning stage because you can last hit and deny at the same time. And so it means that Death Prophet, she's never going to find any farm unless she Crypt Swarms, and even then, it's still not going to be guaranteed until she gets level 2 Crypt Swarm. So you're going to shut down the Death Prophet so hard she can't recover. And Tuzki or Husky, loving the Vengeful Spirit pickup, this is to ensure the enemy team don't get the Venge. And Vengeful Spirit, the single best counter to the Batrider. If Batrider lassos someone, unlike an Abaddon or a Legion Commander who has the 500 range of the Aphotic Shield or the Press the Attack, Venge has 600 range with the swap, up to 1.2k. So it doesn't matter how far away the Batrider drags them, Venge instantly swaps them, breaks the lasso, and Batrider now sitting there looking very silly because he's initiated, he's used his big teamfight ability. Vengeful Spirit doesn't really care if she dies. Actually, it's good if she dies now that the Vengeful Aura will apply a negative debuff to the enemy team. You turn around and stand your ground. Venge and Skywrath Mage also work very well. You've got the waifu duo, where Skywrath Mage initiates with a concussive shot. Vengeful Spirit gives her enough time for her to be able to close the distance to be able to throw out that Magic Missile. Since Magic Missile, I believe it's 500 range, and she does move very slowly at 290 movement speed. So you've got Skywrath Mage or Friend Zone Mage set up with a concussive shot to ensure Venge can get the missile. Since Vengeful Spirit's biggest weakness, of course, is the fact that it's very difficult to initiate with her unless you initiate with the smoke from an awkward angle or if you have something in a room, since the enemy team's usually able to spot you in time to back themselves away and disengage to prevent you from getting that stun. It's the reason why once you pick up level 6, it's usually much more beneficial to initiate with swap, because you've got a longer range of the swap than you do with the Magic Missile. And yeah, nah mate, really deliberating for their 5th pickup. They're dipping into the reserve time, they're actually about to run out in about 10 seconds. So it will be interesting to see if they do decide to go for a Zeus, or if they decide to go for the Phantom Assassin. It's going to be a mid lane pick for the Mule. They decide to go for Axe, and this is a hero they used to perfection to completely throw off, I believe it was Joey, who are currently ranked 1st in the rankings. In their 2nd game, the best of 2 series, they used it to completely disrupt Team Joey, who were not prepared for the Axe. To put into the words of Illidan Stormrage, you are not prepared. You, sir, are most certainly not prepared for Axe. It is a fantastic counter to Terrorblade, because Terrorblade has such a low HP pool that Axe is going to be able to bring him down into the lethal range very early on in the fight, as well as very easily with the counter helix, and then you just dunk him down. The biggest strength of Axe is if you disengage against an Axe, much like if you disengage against the Disruptor, you're going to be losing one more hero every single time. Against an Axe, even the entire team, because you can keep dunking people every single time he dunks someone and kills them, it does completely reset the cooldown. And so, unlike a Disruptor who has to work around the Glimpse cooldown, you could potentially lose your entire team if you try to disengage against an Axe. It's the reason why he's so powerful, as well as the fact that with Stampede and the Culling Blade, it's very difficult to pick off the supports coming in from the team of Yeah Nah Mate. Once again, Lithium, he's going to be the one having some internet issues, so we're going to introduce the players from the boys in Yeah Nah Mate. UGTFO, been underperforming as the offlane player. This time we'll see if he makes it up as the Centaur Warrunner. King Killer, once again, resuming his role as the 1-position Slark. Broder, the team captain, going to be the 4-position Omni Knight, leaving Cox as the 5 and the Lion. Mule going to be the 2-position as the Axe. And over for the boys in Tuzki or Husky, stand-in Ice Sucklol, otherwise known as Tumbling, going to be the Terrorblade in that 1-position role. Pork, going to be the 2-position Death Prophet. La La La, going to be the 4 as the Skywrath Mage. And Lithium, be the 5 as the Vengeful Spirit, although the way it's usually worked out, La tends to also be the 5. But in this case, Skywrath Mage takes farm priority over the Venge, since Venge is going to be a suicide bomber, so she's not going to be able to find too much farm. Although that being said, Venge does scale very well into the late game, and so does the Skywrath Mage, so should they find kills and find a lot of farm early on, they can potentially scale fairly well. Venge, should she find farm, most likely will be going for she's going to be the one carrying the urn, freeing up Skywrath Mage to go for something like a 4-staff early on, to further assist her teammate. And their final player, DJK, looks like he's the one actually having internet issues this time. Going to be the Batrider in the offlane. So yeah, nah mate, they're on the clock once again. Slark is a timing specific hero, and so is the Axe. If Axe, because like the Undying, he's got 20 minutes of God mode, where he should be able to stomp all over the enemy team. If you make good use of those 20 minutes, you should be able to put your team in a good enough position that if you take the game to the late game, you should be able to keep them so far down that they're never able to find enough items to be a threat, so you're just able to end the game, decide the game the first 20 minutes by being able to find these kills, and we're going to take these towers and being able to starve out the enemy team. If you're not able to make good use of that time, then Axe becomes completely irrelevant post 20 minutes, although that being said, the way Mule decides to build Axe, I believe off the top of my head, something like Tranquil Boots into Vanguard Blink, and then he goes for the Sanjin Yasha. I think sometimes he skips the Vanguard, so Sanjin Yasha into the Maelstrom Molnir build, so he foregoes the Blade Mail build, decides to build more Axe-like objects on Axe, to ensure that he actually is relevant in the later stages of the game, since the advantage of Sanjin Yasha on the Axe gives you good stats, gives you the strength which you always need to not only increase your damage to keep yourself alive, gives you the mobility coming in from the Yasha, gives you the main, which is actually quite critical as Axe. He's actually getting a fair amount of hits in, because when he calls you, he's hitting you the whole time you are called by the Axe. Also gives him enough mobility that should he get a maim on you, especially when you've got the Stampede and the Culling Blade to work with, Axe is actually able to run you down, smack you around. And the Molnir, should he ever find it, Static Storm is going to be much more effective than the Blade Mail. Blade Mail is actually counterintuitive on an Axe, because when you call, you get 40 armor, so you're actually not returning that much damage. It's more of a deterrent against magic damage, but most smart players aren't going to throw their nukes against a hero that's got spikes sticking out of him, so that way the Molnir works much more effectively, since they're forced to throw right clicks on you. While you're called, they're going to be eating the Static Storm debuff damage, which is much more effective, so it could also splash over to the rest of the team. So yeah, nah mate, if they're able to get a good 20 minutes, which they should be able to, in a 1v1 matchup of Death Prophet against an Axe, I don't think I've actually seen this particular matchup, but Axe is actually a lot more powerful in that mid lane than you'd expect. It's much like an Ember Spirit. He has a surprisingly high amount of potential burst damage if you ever misstep against him. So Pork has to play very cautiously if he's ever out of position and leaves himself at risk of getting called by Mule. Mule should be able to cut him down, find himself some easy kills. And assuming UGTFO is able to find a reasonable amount of farm, should he get the Stampede and his Blink Dagger early on, you've got another form of setup for Mule. So even without a Blink, Mule can just YOLO in with that Stampede. If UGTFO finds the Blink, he can initiate, or if UGTFO gets off to a difficult start, Mule can initiate for him. So you've got a massive amount of execution power. You've got Double Edge, you've got Culling Blade, and you've got Finger of Death. So all three of these heroes are designed to just simply kill Terrorblade, prevent him from getting the effect of that Sunder, since Terrorblade's biggest weakness is of course his low HP pool. It's the reason why you see most Terrorblade players go for the Kuroki build, where you go for the, I believe it's Treads, Yasha into Mantis Style, and then you go for the Ayascardi as soon as possible. There's also the 6k or MMR build for the pub games, which I believe is Treads, Drums of Endurance into Sanjin Yasha. Sometimes you skip the drums, and then from there you pick up the Ayascardi, or you could disassemble if you choose to go so, but Sanjin Yasha or the early Mantis Style, both of them seem to be the critical pickup for the Terrorblades to give you cost-effective stats. So most likely going to be seeing tumbling over something like the Ring of Aquila into Treads Yasha very early on, because that gives him effectively the same amount of farming speed as the Anti-Mage, because he can rotate into the jungle, flash farm the jungle, and then rotate back in the lane. The biggest strength of Terrorblade is he farms at the same speed of an Anti-Mage with a Battle Fury without actually having to farm Battle Fury first. Assuming he gets to a good enough start that he gets a very early as Yasha as well as the Ring of Aquila, he's good to just rotate into the jungle, frees up the lane for his support, much like the Lycanthrope would, so you're effectively finding another lane of farm for the rest of your team, and then once he clears out the jungle, goes back into the lane, continues to find his farm. Also makes it very difficult to gank the Terrorblade if you're not prepared, or if you don't understand how the Terrorblade works as a hero. Of course, yeah, now mate, very experienced players at dealing with the Terrorblade. The nice thing about the Terrorblade going to the jungle is he tends to go in a very predictable path, so you can usually predict exactly where the Terrorblade is going to be going, especially if you have a ward, even just a single ward in this jungle. And so Tumbling has to be very cautious against the lineup of Yeah Nah Mate. If they're able to stay alive for the first 20 minutes and not lose too many objectives, and assuming Tumbling is able to get off to a good enough start, they might actually be able to turn this game around. Since Yeah Nah Mate, their lineup is on the clock, and they are so critically dependent on being able to find these kills for it to be worthwhile. King Killer most likely going to be going for the Shadow Blade once again instead of the Blink Dagger, even though the Blink would provide a lot more tactical utility. Shadow Blade will actually be the superior pickup if UGTFO or Mule are able to find a very early Blink, because you don't necessarily need 3 Blinks on the team. You already have those 2 heroes initiating for you, and you have the Stampede. So the Blink Onslaught, while a very powerful pickup, still does provide a lot of utility. Not going to be as important this game as it would be in other matchups, as of course the Shadow Blade also gives you the potential ability for you to be able to hunt the Terrorblade on your own, pop the Shadow Blade, rotate into the jungle, find him, stab him, pounce. You should be able to deal enough damage with the Dark Pact. And you also have the Shadow Dance to prevent him from actually being able to sunder you, so the instant you hit him once or twice, instantly pop Shadow Dance, the Terrorblade can't do anything, and you should be able to kill him and get on out of there before the enemy team can respond. Blink Dagger, you still can do that, but you don't have the initial burst damage from the Shadow Blade when you break the invis, and so that could be the critical factor in hunting down the Terrorblade. Although that being said, if UGTFO is not able to find a very early Blink Dagger, the Centaur Warrunner as a hero loses a huge amount of his impetus and becomes a very ineffective hero very quickly. The Centaur Warrunner, his biggest weakness is, unlike a Tidehunter who can stack and clear out Ancients, if he gets shut down, he can very, very slowly jungle, and that's about it. So, and unlike the Tidehunter who has both the Kraken Shell and the Anchor Smash, so 2 ways to keep himself alive should the enemy team decide to dive him or play very aggressively, Centaur, he's got nothing. You Hoof Stomp, and then you cry, and rely on the fact that you have a ridiculous amount of strength. But if they dive you, and if you don't have Hoof Stomp, a lot of Centaur players like to go return at 1. This is a massive mistake, because A, the return isn't going to give you enough value from the enemy team. If they realize they're going to take damage every time they hit you, they're just going to eat their tankers, keep themselves at full HP. You're not going to return enough damage for it to actually be worthwhile. And B, it means that they could dive you. You can't do anything. The return isn't going to save you if they dive your tower. You need a stun so you can at least try to trade, so the tower can get some shots in, especially when they're right-clicking you, so you can even turn it around. As well as the fact that you want to max out your Hoof Stomp after you max out your Double Edge to increase your burst damage. Centaur is first and foremost a ganking hero reliant on his burst combo. So Stampede, Blink, Hoof Stomp into Double Edge. It usually does enough damage for you to kill most heroes or drop them low enough that you can finish them off with a few more right clicks within the duration of the stun. If you're not able to do that, then the Centaur Warrunner isn't able to perform his job, which is gank. And so then you play a much more passive farming offlane hero. But in that case, Centaur just becomes a glorified alt bot, which can be viable, but with the line that the Yen may have drafted, you really want your Centaur to be the one setting up these ganks, to be the one in the front line during the enemy team's fire, forcing them to deal with them. Blink Dagger is so critical in the Centaur, because without the Blink, you're just a Centaur waddling towards them, and while you're waddling towards them, they stun you, they can snare you, they can just walk away from you and ignore you. You've got no way to force them to deal with you. Much like a Wraith King without Blink, because they can just choose to ignore you, neglect you, kill the rest of your team, then turn around and kill you since you're ridiculously tanky, so you give them no incentive to focus you. If you have a Blink Dagger, they now have to deal with you, because if they don't, you can instantly kill the supports. Blink Hoof Stomp the Double Edge on Skywrath Mage, Skywrath Mage instantly dies. So it means that you're now fighting 4v5, you're forced to deal with the Centaur, it's up in your face, smacking you around, making you look silly, potentially interrupting your channeling abilities with your stun, being incredibly annoying, and constantly having the threat of the second Double Edge to be to finish targets off. So that means they have to prioritize their resources to kill you, or to try to disengage, at which point you've already found 1 kill, you might be able to find 2 with the axe. So you put your team in a good enough position. Without the Blink, while you're waddling towards them, they could just choose to run away. Even if you stampede them and run towards them very quickly, it still gives them time to react. They can silence you. And they can actually drop Mystic Flare and Ancient Seal you while you run towards them. Terrorblade, if he's taking damage, could sunder you. If you happen to be low, could sunder his teammate. Pork, if he goes for the Yule Scepter, could just Yules you into the end and walk away as if nothing had ever happened. And suddenly you look very silly. So Blink Dagger is an absolutely critical pickup on the center. He has to find it in the first 14 minutes. For him to be worthwhile as a pickup. Otherwise, you might as well go for a Clockwork, because Clockwork does the exact same thing a Centaur does for the first 20, as far as the first 20 minutes are concerned, but he does it a lot better, because he doesn't need the Blink Dagger to be effective, he doesn't need to have as good of a laning start, and Clockwork's a much more powerful laning hero, because you've got the cogs to work with to play aggressively and defensively, you've got the Battery Assault to set up solo kills, and you've got the Rocket Flare to farm from a distance. Centaur doesn't have any of that. The reason why Centaur is so powerful as an offlane hero is because of the utility Stampede provides, as well as the ridiculous amount of burst damage you could deal, should you find a Blink. That's the reason why Centaur, he's usually he's probably the most commonly picked offlane hero aside from the Tidehunter, Titan Centaur, going toe-to-toe for the most picked offlane hero. He was actually first picked up in the XMG Captain's Draft, when teams actually started to experiment with Centaur after Stampede being reworked and realized, hang on a second, this hero is actually ridiculously powerful if we coordinate the Stampede. Coming in from the Terrorblade from Tuzki or Husky, the reason why he's tapered off is because teams realized, why don't we just pick a Lion against the Terrorblade? Since Terrorblade, his illusions, his biggest strengths are his illusions. If he can instantly kill his illusions with the Mana Drain with the Hex, Terrorblade becomes useless, much like a Phantom Lancer. You either deal with the hero, or you deal with the illusions. If you deal with the illusions by picking up a hero such as an Outworld Devourer, the hero loses a massive amount of his potential damage, or you deal with his hero just by dealing so much damage that you can just kill him, and at that point, it doesn't matter how much farm he has, he's not going to be able to find that farm, you're constantly killing him. Lion does both. You use the Mana Drain to kill one illusion. If you have to start draining mana from the real Terrorblade, you Hex him, Hex is 0 cast point, 500 range, you should be you should be able to find a Hex most of the time, otherwise you can follow up with the Earth Spike if he's gone away. And same thing with the Hex. Hex instantly destroys an illusion. If you Hex the real one, then you laugh at his face, you throw a few right clicks, you finger him, you impale, you yell at your team saying, hey, let's kill this guy, because he's low enough that the finger death should be enough to drop him to about 10% of HP, throw a follow up with the Earth Spike, and Lion can solo kill the Terrorblade. And because Terrorblade is so dependent on finding farm to mitigate his biggest weakness, which is his incredibly low strength, and therefore incredibly low HP pool, if you're able to shut him down, prevent him from finding farm, Terrorblade becomes very useless very quickly. Since unlike the Anti-Mage, he can still contribute to fights with the Mana Void with the Mana Break, Terrorblade's got absolutely nothing. He's got Metamorph, which has been quite heavily nerfed. He's got the Soul Rip, or the Reflection, which is powerful, but it requires him to get very close to them, in which case it's putting him at a lot of risk. And so, I mean, he's got the Sunder, which could potentially be useful, but unlike the Anti-Mage, is guaranteed damage with the Mana Void, so Anti-Mage with no items blinks on you, Mana Voids you, that could potentially win you a team fight, especially with the fact that Mana Void can significantly buffed. Terrorblade, on the other hand, he Metamorphs, he throws a few right clicks, it looks very scary, but if it's a 5-on-5 engagement, you turn around, you focus the big bad demon, you kill him very quickly, and all of a sudden he doesn't seem so scary, because he's got about 400 HP, he's entirely dependent on his armor. Looks like he is going for the Ring of Aquila rush. So Aquila into the... He might go Trance, he might go Brown Boots into Yasha. Brown Boots into Yasha seems to be the much more preferred build order for a lot of pro players, because it's a lot more efficient. You don't necessarily need Treads on Terrorblade that early on, especially if you're going to be spending most of your time hitting creeps. So the early Yasha gives you more mobility, gives you more damage, and of course gives you more stats. The JK, Safety Ward as well as Boots. Batrider compared to the Centaur Warrunner, much more reliable offlaner. His Batrider, much like the Tide, can find recovery farm if he gets shut down. The reason why Batrider is not picked up as often as he used to be is the fact that Sticky Napalm's been quite heavily nerfed. Looks like they actually spoke rotating against Tumbling. Tumbling could be taking a death. Cox, skilled Hex at 1, he should be able to find this kill. Hex has been used, Battle Hunger has been used as well. Pounce, Purification, Tumbling, they can choose to die for this. They don't really give a damn about being able to, about taking a little bit of tower damage. If they're able to ensure the kill, King Killer finds one more right click. And Tumbling taking that death, playing incredibly far forward. No idea why he was on his own around this area, especially as the one. You usually want to be sitting here to make sure that you can creep block, or you want to be there in case you think there's going to be a bounty rune. So way out of position, gets punished for it. And with that first blood, yeah, no mate, put themselves in a very good position for this. Of course, the drawback of this, had they not found that first blood, is Mule skilled Battle Hunger, and that would have been completely useless in the 1v1 matchup against the Death Prophet had he not found that kill. But with the snare, with a little bit of tower diving from Kin, able to ensure the kill. Broda, TP score being picked up, so this time he's going back to his roots. Very conventional safety ward being placed by the Batrider. You usually see safety wards placed around this region, so that's the reason why most enemy supports will place a sentry ward here. In this region, so you assume it's going to be either there, or there. So unconventional safety ward placements, you can actually put it there, because it gives you a vision of when they're pulling. Also spots and rotations coming in from their mid, coming in from the side there. You could also put it there if you want to be a little bit cheeky. I believe if you put it a little bit closer around there, it actually blocks. There also works because it spots them out. You could also put it there, which is much more unconventional, because they're not expecting you to put a ward that's going to be... Because this is close to an aggro ward. An aggro would be putting it there or there, so that way you can spawn in tier 1. So by putting it there, they're not assuming you're going to be placing an aggro ward since you're going to be going 1v3. The reason why it works is you see when they're going in for a pull, and every time you know they're pulling, you can play a bit more aggressively. But the JK, he's going to be having his work cut out for him, especially against the Slark. And Cox, opting to skill Hex at 1. Hex is the new 1.1 to 2.5 second Hex at level 1. Incredibly effective for just one skill point. The only other ability that's that effective is the Dragon Tail from Dragon Knight, 2.5 second stun. But of course, the drawback, 100 range. So you have to be up close and personal. Hex, on the other hand, 500 range and 0 cast point. UGTFO. Actually, not starting on Boots. So Centaur Warrunner, if he doesn't go Boots, you usually see the Ring of Protection Stout Shield, and only starting with 1 set of tangos. So the fact that he went for 2 set of tangos could be representative of the fact that he's against a Skywrath. It's the best way to deal with the Skywrath Mage is to start with another set of tangos. Because the Skywrath Mage is going to run out of mana before you run out of HP regen, and once Skywrath is out of mana, his right clicks, they tickle you. You laugh at his face and you step on him. Lithium, he's going to be the one pulling. Looks like they did place a sentry ward, expecting him to go for the block, but UGTFO going for a bit more of an unconventional safety ward placement from him. So there's the spot out vision coming in from there, so you know when they're pulling, you also know when they're rotating to go for a gank attempt on you. And also place a ward there, or there. So those are other unconventional ward spots. This is also a bit more unconventional, but it does block that camp, so it is fairly obvious. So you could potentially place it there, which is the reason why he put the sentry ward in this region. He was assuming he was going to be going for a ward blocker there or there. So good recognition coming in from both UGTFOs as well as the supports. Looks like we have a potential gank attempt in the mid lanes. Broder, Invis, and Mule looking to go for a kill, but he doesn't have the call. And this is what's going to cripple his effectiveness. Broder goes in with a cheeky purification play. Pork takes a little bit of damage, but they're not going to be able to dive this. They don't want to dive this because you've got the potential 150 nuke from the Crypt Swarm as well as the tower right clicks. And Mule, very low. Is actually going to be incredibly careful. Pork, if he had boots, could choose to actually chase him down for that kill. Would have actually had it. Purification's there to ensure that doesn't happen to Mule. Immediately fairing himself at self. Since the biggest weakness of the axe in the mid lane is while Battle Hunger is powerful, most mid lanes are going to have a way to instantly break it. And since he went for that Battle Hunger at 1, he's not going for the manly axe build where you go for 2 points in call, 2 points in the counter helix, and then just completely disregard the Battle Hunger. Since Battle Hunger is usually not that effective, in this case it was effective because it gave him First Blood. Otherwise he'd usually skip it and choose to just go for no Battle Hunger, just call and the counter helix to ensure he's got maximum damage and maximum lockdown. Tumbling, off to a fantastic start. 12 denies. The denies are going to be a lot more effective, especially against the offlaner, and especially a timing specific offlaner such as the Centaur Warrunner. The longer you're able to delay level 6 and delay that Blink Dagger, the better off your supports will be. Your support's going to thank you because they're not going to be the ones getting dunked on. We do see smoke rotation from La 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 and Lithium. Can choose to initiate the concussive shot right now. UGTFO way out of position. Concussive shot not even needed. You do see rotation coming from Broder with that purification, and Hoofstomp actually saves them. No concussive shot being used until a little bit too late, so La 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 getting a little bit too greedy there. But that being said, even if they had chosen to initiate with the concussive shot, Broder with that TP instantly able to respond. So Broder being the guardian angel for the rest of his team, saying the Omniscience needs this. Picks up the illusion room while over in the offlane. Looks like DJK going to be taking a death of King Killer. This is what I'm talking about. Slark getting the purge off. He's sticking napalm stacks. So that cost actually cleans that one up. So he says support need gold too. That's very early boots in the line, and that's an incredibly critical pickup. Your supports having boots very early on means they can play so much more aggressively. Effectively gives them a free kill if the enemy offlaner is not prepared. Mule gets a call over on Pork, and Pork actually could be taking death right now. Battle Hunger can be used, doesn't have enough mana. Had he had boots or enough mana for a Battle Hunger, could have actually tried to chase him down. Pork able to keep himself alive for now. Tranquil Boots being picked up just for the efficiency. And Mule rotating into the jungle. It's a good play coming in from him. Much like a Shadow Fiend or I suppose a Tiny in that mid lane. Axe is one of those heroes that can rotate into the jungle to actually clear out some camps. Looks like he's actually changed his mind, goes back into the mid lane to realize the Death Prophet has vacated. So Pork, while he's taking a quick nap in the fountain, Mule smacking away some creeps, trying to recover his farm. Mule, once again, very far behind. 10 CS compared to Pork. So Pork, a very experienced technical player in terms of getting these nice and last hits. But Mule, that being said, as a melee hero against the ranged hero, not doing too shabby. And Pork always has to play very scared. So even though he has the EXP lead, even though he has the gold lead, Mule can still potentially kill him. And with that Tranquil Boots, he's actually taking a fair amount of damage. So Death Prophet, doing a fair amount of work there. Cox and Broder smoked up, looking to go for a kill attempt on the JK. Level 4.5, so he's having a much easier time with it than UGTFO. Cox leads with the Hex. JK actually stats there. Might have actually lagged up for a bit. Never mind, there comes the Firefly. Tranquil Boots is picked up, Purification's there. Earthspike was used earlier, and they're not going to have enough damage to bring him down. Lithium actually comes in for a stun. Broder could be taking a death. The Omniscience didn't prepare you for that one. Had he had that repel, would have been to keep himself alive. King Killer wants to go for a kill, misses that pounce. And the JK finds a recovery kill. That's an absolutely critical pickup for him. Batroot is so dependent on finding a level 14 Blink Dagger, much like the Centaur Warrunner. Unlike the Centaur, Batroot, of course, has more ways to make that happen. Mule picks up that regen room very close as La La La. Throws out the Arcane Bolt, does cancel it. But the Tranquil Boots aren't broken, so he's able to regenerate the vast majority of his HP. Now has that Culling Blade to work with. And Pork, he's actually being pinged out. Looks like he is going once again for the standard build order. Phase Boots, probably into the Yule Scepter if he's able to rush it very early on. Looks like we do see the Ring of Aquila coming out from Terrorblade. So Tumbling, going for a fairly conventional build order, has the Quelling Blade as well. Probably going to be going for the Yasha now instead of finishing his treads, since he doesn't feel he needs the extra strength to work with. If UGTFO was able to pick up level 6 and had Stampede, go for a very easy kill against the Terrorblade. But since Tumbling's been spending such a huge amount of time prioritizing these denies, UGTFO is off to a bit of a difficult start. He hasn't taken a death though, so he's got that working into his favor. Lithium looks like he's disconnected, so the players from Tuzki and Husky operating with a massive amount of ping and latency issues. Looks like their internet's not being too crash out. Looks like Terrorblade is going for the conventional Terrorblade build, so Tumbling. Choosing to max out the Conjure Image just to increase your overall farm efficiency. You want to max that out ASAP, just because it has this flat mana cost, and the more damage your illusions do, obviously the faster you farm, especially once you pick up that Yasha with the Quelling Blade. Terrorblade's illusion to farm incredibly quickly. It's the reason why he's so powerful as a hero. You start to farm out of control. So at the moment, he's actually being out-farmed by King Killer just because King Killer's found more kills. So even though Kin has 9 less last hits, just due to the fact that he is actually able to find that kill, let's push him a little bit ahead, but in terms of net worth, Terrorblade really starting to pull through. So the biggest strength of Terrorblade, of course, is the fact that he's just able to farm so incredibly quickly, so early on. So since he's able to maintain this level of farm, and before he's even able, the 10-minute mark is even over, before he's even picked up an actual farming item, it's so difficult for the enemy team to shut him down, unless you run an aggro tri-lane against a Terrorblade, or pick up a very aggressive offlane hero that could go 1v1 against a Terrorblade if the supports leave him alone, such as the Tide Hunter, which can do that fairly effectively since you can zone out Terrorblade with the Anchor Smash, and maybe even look to go for a kill if you go for an early point in Gush. UGTFO, you can actually look to play a lot more aggressively, because Terrorblade has no way to deal with UGTFO getting up in his face. He doesn't have a point in the Reflection, and Reflection is usually the only ability Terrorblade has to set up kills, or in this case to escape from the Centaur should the Centaur choose to engage on him, and should he be successful in landing that Hoofstorm. But that being said, he does have more movement speed to work with, so UGTFO shouldn't be able to threaten him anytime soon. Lithium, looks like should just barely have enough money to finish boots. And so he's going for a fairly conventional Vengeful Spirit build. You actually see Vengeful Spirit players tend to max out the Wave of Terror over the Magic Missile if you've got a very aggressive form of physical DPS. In this case, because you don't have a ranged right-clicking hero that can deal a lot of damage to the Drow Ranger, and because you don't have a hero like a Lycanthrope who's guaranteed to get shots in, since he's got that shapeshift movement speed, maxing out the Magic Missile gives you more reliable burst damage, as well as a slight increase in CC time. I believe it goes up by 0.1 second every point you put in, yeah. So it goes in from 1.45 to 1.75. Can be a bit more effective. Tumbling, most likely going to skip Sunder at 6. Most Terrorblade players in the competitive scene usually don't go for Sunder at level 6 because you don't have the mana pool to sustain it. Just always going to be spamming out the Conjure Image. So he's probably going to be going for a 3rd point in the Metamorph, or he could choose to go for a value point in the Reflection at 6. Most likely going to be choosing to forego Sunder until he picks up at least level 9, just because you want to make sure that you max out Conjure Image ASAP, and you want to make sure that you've got Metamorph from a fair amount of points. Lithium has reconnected, the boys from Yanna mate getting a little bit antsy, and you can hardly blame them. Mule, he's rotating to the jungle, so freeing up the lane for Broder to be able to find some farms. The biggest weakness of Omni Knight, especially in that support position role, is he's so level dependent as a support, you really can't afford to run him as a tri-lane support, or at least a conventional tri-lane support, without giving him some time in lane. So much like an Ancient Apparition or a Sand King, you want to ensure that he gets some kind of lane farm at one point to ensure that he's able to maintain relevancy once the mid game kicks in, once the laning phase ends. Phase Boots now picked up on Pork, gives him a bit more maneuverability, so this should ensure that he should never get called out by Mule on the Axe, unless there's some other kind of setup. So if Axe runs at him, Pork has more than enough movement speed to get a position himself away, and actually let's go for a kill. Pork could have actually chosen to dive that and go for that kill attempt. But Broder, very quick with the purification, just in case if Pork was thinking that. It's the strength of the Death Prophet. Hits you 2 or 3 times, finishes up with the Crypt Swarm. Usually there's enough damage to kill you. Looks like Terrorblade sending one of his illusions to try to zone out UGTFO, but of course the illusion takes 465% damage. UGTFO hits it a few times, should be to kill it. I think it's just 460%. Yeah, oh no, 425, never mind. La la la. Zoning out Broder. Outside that haste turn, can actually look to go for a kill attempt. Broder, gotta be very careful now, shouldn't be taking death turns, deny himself to Ancient's not gonna be able to do so. This is what I'm talking about Skywrath Mage, making so many other supports obsolete. No other support could just go on you and kill you the same way Skywrath Mage can. Since Ancient Seal amplifies your damage with such a ridiculous amount. Level 1 Ancient Seal drops your magic resistance to negative 5%, I believe. 30%. Since most heroes have 25% base magic resistance, yeah, so you're taking 5% amplified damage from just 1 point in the Ancient Seal. Considering how much damage Arcane Bolt does, really does stack up quite quickly. With a pause now coming in from the boys in Yanna mate, so we could be having some latency issues on there. Looks like we are having a fair few pauses coming out for both teams. Lithium been giving a fair amount of space to farm as well, so it looks like the Batrider's rotated into the jungle, so the weakness of Batrider rotating into the jungle now is the fact that Sticky Napalm does half damage to non-hero units. And we actually see a little bit of a rookie mistake coming in from the JK, going in for a point in Flame Strike, for an early point in Flame Break. On paper this makes a lot of sense, it gives you a way to push people into the Firefly, to either do more damage, to either finish people off. It gives you a lot more potential burst damage. It also gives you a way to interrupt TPs. But of course, the reason why you see most pro players forego Flame Break unless they pick up a bottle is you don't have the mana to afford it. You're always going to be spamming out Napalm. Your lasso now costs 225 mana to compensate for the fact that Blink Dagger no longer costs mana, so you really can't afford to drop 140 mana on the Flame Break without drastically impacting your ability to gank, just because you're going to get more overall damage from the sticky Napalm.